Hello everybody, here we are today doing a playoff preview between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now before we start with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So how exactly did we get here? We got here with the Florida Panthers having another really good year, as the past 3 seasons for them have been very eventful. 2 years ago they went to the playoffs and won the President's Trophy, beat the Capitals in the first round, and then last season had a little bit of a lull in the regular season, only to go on to the Stanley Cup final. This year again proves to be a nice season as they win the Atlantic Division for the second time in 3 seasons, winning their last 4 games in a row. As for the Tampa Bay Lightning, not a bad year in the sense that the playoff streak is able to be kept alive. However, they failed to crack the 100-point mark for a second straight season and are looking to get back into the second round after being knocked out in the first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, hoping that this is going to be able to get back on track rather than being a trend where maybe they are starting to see their downward fall. And now, having seen these two teams play each other twice already in recent years, this will be the 3rd time in 4 seasons they get to clash in the playoffs. So what exactly are some storylines to watch out for here? The first one is what can Tampa Bay stars bring to the table. We already know Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, and Steven Stamkos are really good at hockey. Looking at all these guys, they all have been able to achieve a lot in their careers already. Kucherov especially, as well as Stamkos, part of this really good decade that they've had with this team. Point played a pivotal role in recent years. All 3 of these guys have had over 40 goals this season. Kucherov just was the 5th player ever last night to have 100 assists in a season, so there's a lot that can happen here that are good. You know that these 3 are going to have a huge impact in this series as they account for about 45% of Tampa Bay's goals. So is there anybody that you have to worry about in this series? I think you could look at it in a lot of ways, more the analytical way, but we're going to be looking at it in more of a storyline way here. I don't think Kucherov is as concerning. Maybe you worry about the points, but I know Point will be a good player in this. I do wonder a bit about Steven Stamkos. And that's because the veteran is getting near his mid-30s and is going to be a free agent after this year. I'm not usually one that buys into storylines, but this is a guy that's been able to play a very long time, over 15 years with one team, and has won 2 championships, has made multiple trips to the Stanley Cup final, and has been a key pillar of this team in the success that they've had over the course of the past, 10 years, like I mentioned earlier. But with this, you kind of get that sense of a guy that's achieved a lot, wondering what is next in his hockey career. You have to imagine that he has got that in the back of his mind. You just don't really want that to play a factor here when, again, he contributes so much to this team in terms of goals. Already a guy that was able to crack the 40-goal mark despite being nearly 34 years old. I mean, this is just something that he is able to do, but you do have to worry about, especially looking at a team like the Panthers. They're not really fun to play against. The Panthers are the best team in the league at 5-on-5 pressures per 60 and recoveries per 60, just meaning that they are willing to go out there and get aggressive, forecheck a lot, and make your life miserable. On top of that, too, they have 12 players that had 100 hits or more this season. They're not afraid to go out there and just, lay a hit if they want. And the whole purpose here is to just make life miserable for the opposition, something that Florida's been able to do. They're really chippy. They aren't going to make zone entries very fun. They're just going to be a side that if they are able to get in your zone, and you can't get out, it's going to be a long day. I'd like to say that for Tampa, stars are able to perform and deal with that pressure. Maybe, get a couple of penalties called against the Panthers, but you got to watch out for this because if they don't perform, Tampa Bay is going to be in a bit of trouble. Now, the second question is going to be, if this series sticks more to 5-on-5 play, who stands to benefit from it? So we know both of these teams were top 10 units on the special teams. Both of these sides, you could imagine, could score a lot of power play goals. I would say, especially with Florida, you'd expect them to be the better PK team. Either way, both of these sides are able to get the job done there. 5-on-5 play, where you play most of your minutes, you kind of wonder who would stand to benefit from this. And unfortunately for the Lightning, it's the Florida Panthers. They have the 4th best goals for percentage in the league, whereas Tampa Bay is 27th. It's not even necessarily the fact that Florida is able to dominate shots and things like that. It's the fact that their shots are just better quality. Now, I will be honest with you, kind of like I talked about earlier, when Florida forechecks and they get you in their zone, it's almost like playing a video game and you're just spamming the shot button where you're trying to get pucks on net and try to get as many as you can to go in. That's kind of what Florida gets here. I mean, there's more things to it than just that, but they are able to just dominate teams in this category. So at 5-on-5, the Lightning do not want to struggle here. I will be honest though, I think one thing that stands to benefit for the Lightning here is if they're able to get out of their zone, their defensive zone, and get puck forward. You're able to see them be a much better team at zone entries compared to the Panthers. So if they are able to just figure out the Panthers' forecheck and get out of that and not have a bunch of turnovers that cost them, you'd like to think that they can do better at this series at full strength than maybe you'd expect. And then the final talking point here is whether or not home ice advantage will even matter in this series. A lot of these first round matchups will see a lot of travel. This case is not going to be similar to a lot of those, as this is an in-state rivalry with less travel. Both of these teams were pretty good on the road this year. The Florida Panthers were tied with the Dallas Stars for most road wins this season with 26. Tampa Bay wasn't too bad with 20 on the year, so not a massive difference. But you're looking at this knowing that there's going to be a lot of passion, a lot of intensity with this being a playoff atmosphere. Florida in recent years has been able to attract more fans, I believe. And then Tampa Bay with the recent championships and just the fact that they haven't really been a bad team in a while is going to have a good crowd as well. So you have to wonder which team could slip up the most in this series. But I look at it too and say that the Panthers are probably just happy to have an extra home game in their pocket. Looking at recent playoff runs, you could see from last year, the Panthers were 8-4 on the road last year, whereas the Tampa Bay Lightning were 0-3 at home. I'm not really going to buy into a whole lot of that because it is a very, very, very small sample size. The Panthers, I guess you'd be a little bit more optimistic about that because it's more games, but the Lightning would probably like to think of their barn as a fortress. And if you keep losing at home, a lot more people are going to be talking about that, and it's going to be a story where fans could possibly get angered by that. They go to the games and maybe they express the frustration with you. You're a professional athlete, so you're probably not expecting to be affected by that. But, it's just one of those situations. It's not fun to have fans be angry and possibly throwing things down at the ice on you if you can't win at home. So, overall, what are my thoughts on this series? I am very, very excited for this series because we've seen these playoff matchups before with these two sides. Again, a few years ago, probably wouldn't have been a big deal. You had the Lightning that were a team winning championships and just being a really good team over and over and over again, whereas the Panthers were really a side that couldn't seem to get anything going for them, making the playoffs, doing anything in the playoffs, being I don't want to say relevant, but just being a mainstay is one of those top teams in the league, talking about how important they were. A few years ago, this would have been something where Tampa Bay just write them off for a win in 5 games. Things have shifted a lot in the past 2 years, 3 years especially, as the Bolts seem to be sliding back, and the Panthers are the better team over the regular season over the past few years. And you have to imagine, with the fact that this team is getting better, the other team is getting worse, the fact that the Panthers are looking for their first championship, and they have a lot of penalty minutes, especially looking at the Panthers, this series could get very, very heated. I know I've said that with some other playoff previews, but this one definitely could, and I am just excited to think about all the things that could happen on the ice for this series. So with that being said, I'm going to be picking the Florida Panthers in 6 games. Tampa Bay is really being driven by their star power. I do worry a little bit about what their forwards can give them. I know Victor Hedman will probably be expected to be a big part of this. But, you're probably relying on guys like Anthony Duclair to have to step up, and I just don't know if they can get the job done against a Florida side that is good and a pain to play against. Like I said, you could end up taking bad penalties because you hate playing against them, and you could have games where you go out and get flat out dominated by this team because you can't even get the puck out of your end. Mikhail Sergachev is going to be out of the first round from all the articles that I read. That's not fun for your blue line. That's not fun for your team, knowing you have a defenseman that could play a big role in helping you get past this side. Andrei Vasilevsky has not been able to have a year that you're hoping for as he bounced back from that operation. And the Panthers are just overall better. Do I think John Cooper's a good coach? Yes. Do I think that the Lightning have been able to achieve a lot of success in recent years? Yes. But they've lost a lot of picks, lost a lot of players. A lot of these guys are older, and like I already said, Sergachev's out, and Vasi's been dealing with these injuries. So I think for the first time in this period with these recent playoff matchups, the Panthers are finally going to beat their in-state rivals and be able to maybe go on yet another deep run. As a few years ago, the Bolts owned all of Florida from what it seemed, and the Panthers are carving out their own little area down south. So what are your thoughts on this series? Who do you think will win and in how many games? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. We're very close to 700 subscribers. And at the end of this video, I will leave the playlist for all the other previews. So check that out if you're interested. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.